Dustin Stout, are you ready to fearlessly question today?
I am. Yes.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. First, fearless question. Have you ever gotten a little too aggressive with your fingernail clipper? Because that's what I'm dealing with right now, and it's ridiculous. I tell you what, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this interview.
True story, I've never had to use a fingernail clipper. Well,
Stop right there. I don't know where this story is going to go after that. I have no idea.
I'm a nail biter. I'm a
Logical assumption.
prolific nail biter. In fact, I've tried relentlessly over the decades to try and, all 2 decades that I've spanned, to try and break this habit, and I just haven't been able to do it. So, my issues lie in biting too much.
I would have never expected that. I'm a little freaked out. It's kind of gross, but I will deal with it, and we'll try and get past it.
Well, you should know that I'm an extremely clean person. Like, I'm not Howie Mandel level of germaphobe, but I do keep my hands quite clean throughout the day.
Good to know. Good to know.
Making the nail biting a little more sanitary.
That's
still pretty gross.
Well, let's get serious here, and enough of the silly talk. Why don't we warm things up a little bit before we really start getting after each other's throats? Tell us your story as it relates to being a design snob and your kind of ability to fearlessly question it.
Well, my story as a design snob. Well, once upon a time, I was.
We only have a half an hour, so just.
Well, all my life, I've pretty much been an artist in many forms of the word. I started with drawing and sketching and tried my hand at painting, realized I was terrible at that. But give me a pencil or a pen or something solid to write or sketch with, and I loved it. I drew comic books. I drew a lot of superheroes, so I was very into comic books and superheroes. But I was also a performing artist, so I loved dance. I loved music, singing, musicals. I, of course, always wanted to be an actor ever since the day I was born. I was actually named after Dustin Hoffman, so it was somewhat of a destined career path for me to be in the performing arts. So that translated, sketching and artistry and craftsmanship eventually landed me into, an interest in graphic design. It started in high school. I was in my art class, and my art teacher would often he was a real cool guy. I'll never forget Mr. Enoch, and he would invite me. He would write hall passes for me during my study halls, and I would just come to his office and I'd play on Photoshop or CorelDRAW. And I just, as a hobby, just something fun to do, I would design stuff. And eventually I, became a working professional, started working for my church, and they needed some graphics work, they needed some web work, and I had a knack for it. So I just started to really do things. And I've always had this sense of quality, just perfectionism, I guess is the word. I really, I'm a perfectionist, and I analyze things. I'm very detailed, and so I kind of developed this, snobbish design sense, so to speak. And I say that jokingly because, I really care about the quality of things, because I think quality communicates value. And if your audience or your, whoever you're designing this for doesn't know that it's been crafted in a valuable way, and they don't see the value, then your work is for naught. So I guess that's where it comes from, a bit of perfectionism, a love for craftsmanship, and yeah, I think that's it.
Well, yeah, and full disclosure, you self-admitted to me being a design snob, and for everybody that isn't aware, Dustin did all the work for everything that you see here, all the graphics for Fearlessly Questioning, the nice little lower third. Let's see if I can point to it right there. All that is Dustin's handiwork. So I obviously wanted to have him on to talk about it, and really, I think we're going to just kind of get right into it, and this is how I like to do the show, is just get into the most fearless question right away, so why not, right? And that is, does being a design snob, does it alienate you from business objectives? Does it prevent you from being as successful as you could be?
At the beginning, yes. When I was very new, very green to the business world, or very green to working in an organization, my perfectionism, my craftsmanship was much more powerful than my ability to understand, comprehend, and execute on deadlines and alternate objectives. As an artist and as a creative, my objective is always make the best thing possible, without regard to time, without regard to what anybody else wants. It was really a very, when you're new, when your craft has only been about your own expression, it's very difficult to transition into delivering things that to meet other people's needs rather than your own expression. So at the beginning it was very difficult, but I caught on real quick. Working for a high-performance organization, a very large church, I learned very quickly to realize that what I'm creating is not necessarily for me. Sure, I love to do it, and it's partly an expression of myself, but I'm creating these graphics or these websites or these logos to meet someone else's needs. And when it comes to business, then the customer's needs always have to come first. So it took a bit of time, and I feel like I'm now in a place where I've struck a nice balance of, my professional opinion, my snobbishness, and my love for the craft, and the business goals and objectives that need to be met. Now there are times when, a client will have objectives, and I'll have ideas about how to meet that objective, and sometimes, even though I craft those things specifically for that objective with intelligent choices, the client will still not like it, and at that point I have to make a decision, whether I will knowingly deliver them something that I know isn't right for what they're trying to go for, in part ways, or deliver them exactly what they want, regardless of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think for everybody kind of watching and listening, to this, substitute the word design for creative. Being creative, and that we're all doing something online in some capacity. I would imagine if you're watching this to create a blog post, to produce a podcast, whatever it is, and it's just like that perfection sometimes holds you back. Now I come from a not as similar background, but from more of an artistic background of playing music and writing songs and trying to play in bands and things like that. So you just from writing songs and having it be done when it's done sort of mentality to you're going to write this blog post, you're going to put whatever it is together in a business environment. It's just like, well, there's bills that need to be paid and this needs to get done. And
right.
Working in my family's agency, that me and my dad would yell at me quite often about that. So it took me a little bit of time to get through that. So I completely understand where you're coming from. And this is where we're going to kind of go into the next thing, and this, we could talk about this for quite some time, but I'm going to call you out a little bit on it and see what you think. Part of your design is not so much just what you create for clients, and it's how you just kind of present the overall package. What you include, what you don't include. Simplistic versus over cluttered. And we're always dealing with websites and what's going to work best. Let's talk about sidebars and pop-ups.
Oh. Okay, where do you want to start?
Well, let's talk about it just from the sense of effectiveness. Okay, so I know pop-ups are its own thing, but obviously, from a design perspective, from an effective perspective, if you had a sidebar, are you missing out on people, converting or taking some type of action, taking some kind of next step? With a pop-up, how many email people are you, missing out on? I don't want to go all the way down that rabbit hole, but just kind of talk about that trade-off and what you think about it.
Well, I'm a big fan of the sidebar. The sidebar has worked very well for me in all the websites I've developed historically. If you visit Dustin.tv now, you'll notice there is no sidebar. I've kind of eliminated that option from my entire website, and it's been a pretty positive strategic move for my personal objectives. But for most
well, what are those personal objectives, real quick?
Well, for me, I really want people to understand and read the content. I mean, for me, it's really about the education and people really grasping and understanding without any possible distraction. I'm not as concerned. I've got enough email subscribers at the moment. I don't need to just bring them in by the droves. I want people to understand where my opinions, my expertise, and my authority lies, and they will only get that through reading the content first. Sure, they'll sign up for my newsletter and they'll get that through the newsletter, but I want them to be completely sold on why they're going to sign up for that newsletter before they, sign up just to get the free goodies that I send out. That's why my email opt-in is only below after they read. So they only see that opt-in after they read. And studies have actually shown that people who have to look a little bit for, I think actually HubSpot did a study on this, that calls to action that take a little work to find actually convert a little bit better. But we can go back and forth on that. So I'm a big fan of the sidebar, but again, understanding your goals and what your objective is for the website or for the blog, that should dictate every single thing that is in your sidebar. And anything that's in that sidebar that does not lead you towards your goal or lead your prospective customer or subscriber or reader towards that goal should be completely eliminated from the sidebar. I mean, I'm talking social share buttons. If your goal is not to get them after you on social media, you shouldn't have social share buttons. I mean, figuring out the hardest thing, branding, this all kind of goes back to branding. Branding is about figuring out your goals, and what your goals are will dictate every single thing that you do, every decision you make for your website, and that includes what's in your sidebar and, most importantly, what's not in your sidebar. Pop-ups are the most evil thing ever created on the internet. Don't use them. That's all I'll say.
Well, I know. I mean, I jumped in a little bit. I think it was maybe Ryan Hanley that started that debate on Google Plus a couple months ago, and it was
revived yesterday by Mike Alton.
Oh, I missed that. But I think it was all started with a video that Derek Halpern did about pop-ups and why you were an idiot if you weren't using them. And I know there was a lot of fun-spirited conversation, I'll say, surrounding that debate. But I can see it both ways, and I think again, I think it depends on, like you said, what are you trying to do,
right.
What are you okay with, and what is your personal kind of standards for design.
Yeah.
And you brought up the email list. I have to go on. I have to ask this question, even though it is not necessarily design based. You said you have enough email subscribers. Is that possible?
Well, I say that based on my current goals. Okay, right? So, we all have goals and objectives for our websites and for our online digital presence. Hopefully we have goals. We're not just kind of winging it. But where I'm at the moment is a place where, okay, I'm paying for these subscribers. And this is another reason why I'm not a fan of pop-ups, because yesterday I put out a challenge. Anybody who wants to do this experiment with me, I'm down. I will craft this strategic experiment. But here's my hypothesis. Okay, so pop-ups will definitely get you more email subscribers. Why? Because it's blatant, it's in their face, it's a hard sell. But the quality of those subscribers, what is the effect of the quality of a subscriber based on how they sign up for that newsletter? So you're using forceful, low-grade tactics to push your newsletter onto people rather than have them find it, discover it, or even search for it organically. My opinion is that those will produce lower quality leads, and what I mean by that is, okay, would you rather have a list of 10,000 subscribers? Okay, 10,000. That's a decent size for an average blogger, and have the average open rate for for an email for someone in my industry, the average open rate I think is something like 15%. So you take 10,000, that's what, 1,500 opens. So you just paid for 10,000 emails to be sent, and only 1,500 people open them. Much less clicked on your newest product or your newest deal. Or would you rather have half as many subscribers, 5,000 subscribers, and have that same open rate, which is a double percentage of an open rate, so say 30% open rate, that's still 1,500 people, but you paid half for sending those emails. So that's business efficiency. So that's higher quality leads that on your newsletter that you're not having to pay for a big waste of emails.
What I like what you talked about there, and one of my big things is knowing exactly who you want to do business with. I think is what it comes down with, and
Right.
identifying the things that ultimately get you there, whether it's a pop up or no pop up. But actually, I want to bring in Zara's on your side here. She says she's got a lean, mean sidebar right now. She only has one CTA and no pop ups.
Good.
Um, so you got that going for you. So a few people in the peanut gallery that agree with you, and we're going to try and make this happen. I don't know if it's going to happen, but if you want to hop on the show and ask Dustin your own fearless question, you got about 15, 20 minutes to get ready. Go ahead and toss it in the event page,
Bring it
and use
on.
the hashtag #GetFearless so I know that you're going to be camera ready to actually come onto the show with this question, and we'll try and bring you on at the end. Had some timid attempts in previous shows, but really would like to get this going. Really like to get you guys on camera with these people and asking some fearless questions. But in the light and spirit of fearless question asking, it is Dustin's turn right now to ask you a fearless question. And Dustin, I want you to ask your audience, the fearless questioning audience, a question that you have always wanted to know the answer to, but have always been a little too afraid to ask because you don't know how they're going to respond to it.
Okay. Now, I thought I had this figured out at first, but it turns out I don't. So let me figure out how I want to phrase it.
I can get some Jeopardy music going while we wait. I don't want to distract you from actually coming up with one. It doesn't. I mean, no. I mean, this isn't like we're not making money off this question or anything, so it doesn't have to be.
No, but there is something that I really want to know, and I just, I'm not sure how to phrase it, but I guess I'll just kind of say it. What is it about design or about designers that intimidates you or that stops you from just doing the darn thing? Maybe I need to add a little context to that. So I see so many people with such wonderful, powerful messages, and I hear these comments like, man, if I only had design like yours, I would really, if I only knew how to design like you or had a designer to do this for me, then my idea would be so much better, or I would be able to move forward with my idea, or or I would be able to start working towards that idea. And I see so many people getting hung up on the design rather than just pushing forward with the idea, and they have wonderful, beautiful ideas. Not to say that the design won't help, but I think I said this recently as well, but the design is not the first thing to worry about. How it looks is not the most important thing, and this is coming from a guy who makes his living making things look awesome. Just do it. So what is it? What is it about the design that, or being a designer, that intimidates you the most? I'd love to know the answer to that question so I can help more people get past it. So what hangs you up about design or intimidates you about designers?
Well done, Dustin. In addition to being the best fearless question, audience fearless question that we've had so far, it also was the longest. So congratulations on 2 accounts.
Winning.
But so if you want to go ahead and leave that in the comments, or for everybody that is listening at home after this on the podcast, feel free to head on over to fearlesslyquestioning.com/ what is this, 7-3. 7-3 is the show that we would be doing here, I believe. So, and you can go leave a comment, and I think I could probably talk Dustin into to reading it and maybe giving you a response back. I can maybe talk him into that. So, but I'm glad that you said that, though.
Buy me a Starbucks.
Well, I will have it FedExed to you. We're across the country, but I think we can make it happen. I'm glad you brought that up, though. Intimidation. If only I had this, my thing would be awesome. And there seems to be a lot of tools popping up to enable that in some capacity.
Yeah.
Foolishly in some capacity, I would say. And I'm going to come hard at this, and there seems to be such great love, and I don't ever hear anything bad about it. But there's just such goodwill and positivity towards this tool. I'm going to come at it a little bit Canva. And it's creating this malaise of sameness across my streams to where I can't tell who's pushing what out. And is that in and of itself a tragedy? Because it's not so much the tools. We think it's the tools, but it's more about the message and vision behind what we can use to put those things together. I don't know if there's a question, but go from there.
There's a question there?
I don't know. But
no, I think there was. No, I think there was. And I think I'll address the sameness issue. And oh, look at that, my buddy Nicholas Cardot's in the house. What up, Nick? Also a brilliant visual artist as well, a genius when it comes to JavaScript, jQuery. The guy's the man. Super brilliant too. Anyways, so you mentioned this aspect of sameness, and I totally get that. A sort of like a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Everything starts to look exactly alike, and I think that's a challenge that Canva has because it's still in the early stages. There are tons of beautiful designer templates that make it super easy for people who have no design experience to have sort of a guideline, or at least something to start with that they can be confident in because a designer has already kind of placed the elements and all they have to do is insert their text. And I think that's a good thing at first, but people really do need to learn from it rather than leaning on it as a crutch forever. I feel like we'll see this for a little while, this kind of sameness, but as people start to use it more, as Canva starts to continue, or not starts to, but continues to write these really brilliant blog posts and articles and lessons on design and design principles, I think things will get better. I think people will start to learn how to differentiate themselves. And one of my big problems with Canva has been the lack of fonts. A lot of the fonts are very similar in Canva right now, but they're working on that. I spoke with Melanie, the CEO of Canva. I interviewed her a while back, and she assured me that they're working on a whole lot of really good things, and one of them is adding some more fonts to the system and some more templates, some more partnerships with designers. So I think that will change, what you're seeing in that sameness, but it is part of the greater evolution, I think, of the internet and us as a culture becoming more visually aware and more visually expressive. It's an area that a lot of people have just been afraid to jump into, and now they're starting to dip their toe in by sort of leveraging the skills of others in these templates. But I think eventually that'll start to spur off into people venturing off on their own and creating very unique things. And it's another reason why I'm doing this visual content mastery class, is because I want to take people who are not designers, teach them some design principles that they can then use as a foundation to kind of build their own visual style.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I mean, Canva, they send me a lot of interesting looking emails that I don't read. I mean, on how to be a better designer. I mean, I'm not in the business of being a better designer, but it is fascinating. And I mean, I just think I want to highlight the point that it's not about if you only knew how to use Photoshop. I mean, just because you know how to use the program doesn't mean you're gonna design something that looks awesome. I can use Photoshop, and I couldn't do what Dustin did, and that's what drives me nuts because I see the limitation of my abilities, and then I just go cry in a corner for 30 minutes. And those are the types of things that I think just because you can doesn't mean you should. But I want to bring this up. Your buddy Nicholas is dropping some like poetry on us here. I mean, this dude's got away with words. The democratization of design has resulted in nothing more than a change in the standard of mediocrity. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that get paid to write that couldn't have said it better themselves. So, Nicholas, thank you for that contribution to the show. Dustin, we're working in towards the end here. If there are any questions, I haven't seen any come in. I don't know if everyone's just a little too intimidated to get on camera with Dustin, because we do know that you are a very confident and borderline cocky designer, and I'm sure you'll play nice, though. There won't be any bloodshed or anything like that.
Nice.
But kind of wrapping things up, gearing things down here to this conversation, let's first talk about ugly being effective. Briefly, right before the show started, we kind of were just kicking some conversation back and forth, and you can say the dude's name better than I can, but Saeed of WP Beginner done tons of crazy tests on what works and what doesn't, and I eavesdropped very creepily on a conversation he was having at Social Media Marketing World, and he was saying how the uglier something is, the more it stands out, the more effective it is. And again, coming back to this balance of creating stuff that is nice but also is effective. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I love Syed. He's done so many cool things, and he's a young guy too. He's even younger than I am, I think. But he's done.
Well, Dustin, you're not spring chicken anymore, my friend.
What's that?
You're no spring chicken anymore, my friend.
Yeah, I guess so. But he's done some phenomenal things. I mean, he has websites that generate huge amounts of traffic, so he has the ability to test these sorts of things. And it is funny if you look at a lot of the popular memes. I mean, I can go on a 15-minute rant about how ugly memes are, but they do well. And I think psychologically there's something in that people can relate to. It's not a professional image, and they can tell, and that makes it feel a little more makes them feel a little more connected to it, I think. So yeah, there's definitely something in that. You know, the ugly, the shamelessly ugly and unpolished look can work for a lot of things. You know, especially the more humorous things. I think it works for, you know, memes and things of that nature. But they work. So.
And is there? I mean, is it just? I mean, is there anything to argue against that? I mean, it just works, so
No.
we don't. It's not broke, so don't fix it, sort of thing.
Well, it's an anomaly, really. It really is, because we know. I mean, I'm doing a whole class on the psychology of why things are beautiful and what sort of psychological triggers make us believe something is attractive or believe something is beautiful or makes us, you know, feel a certain way. There's certain aesthetics that are really kind of burned into our psyche that tell us what beautiful is. But when we see these ugly things, these things that are not polished or symmetrical or balanced or any of that stuff, I just feel like that they tend to work well for certain contexts and for certain content and demographics because they have that human sort of relatable, imperfect nature or imperfect feel to them that makes people go, oh, you know, this was created by someone just like me. Like, I like that. I like that I can feel like I relate to it.
Well, I think we have a taker finally on the Get Fearless challenge, if you will. Looks like your buddy Nicholas Cardot might want to step in here. He has a question that it was where I was going to wrap things up with, so I think apparently he didn't watch your pre-show rant, because this is kind of what you addressed, but I wanted to talk about it more to wrap up the show. So I'm going to let him come on and hop into the conversation. We'll give him a few minutes for this whole lag thing to work and see if it actually works. So I don't know. I have a feeling this could potentially be a sports talk radio situation. Sir, I need you to turn down your radio. Please turn down your radio. But we'll see how it goes. So the invite is out to Nicholas. Hopefully he should have it and be hopping in here momentarily.
Cool.
But while we wait for that to happen, I will come at you with one other thing, and it's not so much design related. It's just me being having the opportunity to fearlessly question you, so in front of like actual people.
Do it.
So let's see what we have for this. So it's your big thing, and what we're going to be getting after with Nick here in a minute, I think. First one, you did talk about your email list and about the opt-in box, and on your email opt-in, it says get on the insiders list for exclusive offers, such and such, but it really doesn't say one specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, that could say, I just kind of haven't really put together anything that I think you should have, and I'm just going to give you it when I think I have it. Or it could say that you do have a ton of stuff. How do you perceive that? Because I could say to somebody reading that says, well, I really don't know what I'm getting, so I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, well, I've actually recently changed the verbiage on that opt-in box. I don't know if they've all changed. I might have missed one.
Did I find a hole in the Dustin Stout armor?
You may have found an oversight. Because right now it says get exclusive content via email, gain instant access to a growing library of downloadable resources, and first priority for the latest happenings. So that's what it currently says. But before, you're right. It was a little more generic. It was a little more all over the place, and that was just sort of a typical shoemaker's children's story. I was working so hard on everybody else's sites that I didn't take the time to really nail down exactly what I want my subscribers to know what they're in for. But I have recently changed that. I recently created a download page. Usually I send out my subscribers goodies, little downloadable things that they can put into action, things that are either visual templates or icon sets, things of that nature. And so it was always kind of, whatever I created for the month or for the week, that's what would kind of go in there. And so it was kind of not a exact, I didn't have it mapped out exactly what I was going to deliver, and so that's why the verbiage kind of stated that. But yeah, now it's pretty straightforward.
All right. Well, maybe I think I'm on your email list, but I don't remember getting one from you since I signed up. I might have to double check that. Maybe I didn't
Oh,
officially.
you better check that spam folder.
I guess I'll have to look. Well, we do have our first fearless questioner hopping in here to ask Dustin his question. Nick, you had a good question. I want to let you ask Dustin to it himself and lay into him as much as you want. So, Nick, go ahead.
Sure. Well, for those of you who don't know, I've worked with Dustin behind the scenes and been able to watch him work sometimes. And one thing I've learned about him is that he's very, very particular. Like every pixel he moves in Illustrator on Photoshop, he does it for a specific reason to try to elicit a specific psychological response from the people who view that what he's working on. But Dustin, as you look at the work that others create in the graphics and in advertising, what are some pet peeves that you see in the work that others do? Things that just maybe make your skin crawl, or things that you just shake your head in sadness when you see people do these things?
Well, Dustin, before I let you answer, I want to make sure that this doesn't go unnoticed. For everybody that is listening at home, I want to comment on the amazingness of Nick's shirt. He's wearing a turtle shirt with a mustache.
Yes, and they have mustaches. Yes.
Yes. I love it. Oh, gosh.
That had to get out. I'm sorry for interrupting and derailing that awesome segue, but it had to be done. So, Dustin, go ahead.
Love it. Nick is always wearing the best T-shirts. We hang out all the time on these Hangouts, and he's always wearing something really cool. So your question, and Nick, you probably already know this, but I have very extensive pet peeves when it comes to design and a lot of things. I'm very opinionated, admittedly. I have a lot of grace with people, so I have some fun with my pet peeves. But if I were to say one thing, it's clutter. Clutter comes in many forms. Clutter comes in having too much on the page, or having too many dissimilar things on the page. One great example of that is typography. I'm not the master of typography, I'll say that flat out, but I am very particular about the use of typography. So when somebody uses 5 different fonts on whether it's a graphic or a web page, it drives me up a wall. People, the rule is stick to 1 font if you have no idea what you're doing. 2 fonts if you kind of understand how to pair them together. It's like matching clothes. A polo shirt doesn't necessarily go with sandals. Just like socks don't go with sandals. But depends on your style. If you're really good at fitting those things together, they could absolutely work. Same as with typography. If you understand kind of how to pair things, they might work together. But if you don't know how to really pair things together, just use 1 font. 1 font with a lot of different weights will go a long way. And never, ever, 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 ever use Comic Sans or Papyrus. Every time you do, a unicorn dies. So that would be my biggest pet peeve.
So the khaki shorts I have on with the shirt and tie is probably not a good idea then, huh? According to Dustin.
Well, who knows? I can't see. I'm not particularly a fashion kind of guy. I leave that to my wife. That's why I kind of stick to red V-necks all the time. So who knows? It might work the way that you put it together.
You said you're not a fashion kind of guy. Didn't you used to design shirts for a living?
I did. T-shirts, though. That's a little bit different than fashion.
Very true. Well, and I think I thought you kind of threw me a curveball. I thought you were going to hit on the message thing again, but you did cover that pretty extensively in the beginning. But that is a good point as far as clutter typography. Nick, is there anything that you want to follow up with Dustin on?
Actually, when you were talking about clutter, one thing that you didn't mention but was coming to my mind, how would you say that plays into things like negative space, spacing things out, aligning things like that? Does that go into that same factor of trying to make it look less cluttered, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. White space is crucial. Clutter. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. You have one message. You should only ever have one message that you're trying to communicate at once. If you're trying if you're trying to emphasize multiple things, you end up emphasizing nothing. Let that sink in. If you try to emphasize everything, you emphasize nothing. Just like, if every day were a sunny day, what's a sunny day? So have one message that you're trying to communicate and eliminate everything else that doesn't communicate that message or that distracts from the message. You'll be better off. Simplicity is confidence. It's not, simplicity is not, being lazy. In fact, sometimes being simple is the hardest thing in the world. But if you can execute a message simply and effectively, there's power, real power in that, and real confidence in it as well. And, trying to communicate too much just dilutes and dilutes and dilutes the message.
All right, good stuff. Nick, is that done for you? You have any more fearless questions for Dustin while we got you here?
That's all I've got, sir.
All right, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you actually coming on here. One of the first actually successful fearless questioners to hop on the show. That Hangouts aren't always the most friendliest of things to deal with. Dustin,
friendliest?
No, they're not the most friendliest. I don't know if that was the proper English, but you're allowed to make fun of the host if you want. I'll allow it. Almost got a spit take. Would have been the first spit take too on the show. But no, Dustin, it's been a blast. I had a lot of fun. I don't want to. I'll remove the microscope now, and it's been very generous of you to spend your time with us. What do you want people to do? Where can people go get more Dustin Stout?
Well, always you can visit Dustin.tv. That's Dustin without the I. DUSTN.tv. That's where I write all my thoughts. I've got a really fun video series, a weekly video series that I'm doing now called Weekly Headlines. Really excited about that. It's actually a big tease for something much bigger coming in September. So go check that out. Sign up for the newsletter, get some goodies, and be awesome. Be more awesome than you already are.
I'm glad you brought that. There's actually one question I didn't ask you about, the weekly headlines. I had it in the thing. I didn't get to it. We'll have to ask it after this thing's over. I'll have to lay into you when people can't watch. But also, if you want to get Dustin's answer to what fearless question he's most afraid to ask himself in his own life and business, well, head on over to fearlesslyquestioning.com and opt into the whole Fearless library. So everybody that's been on the show, every past guest has answered that question, and you can check out their response to that question. I just sit there all day and watch all 10 of them all the time because it's good stuff. It's honestly, I would give it to you for free, but I'm selfish and I want emails, so I figured what better way to do that than.
You don't have enough emails?
I don't have enough emails. I'm not in the Dustin Stout business of having enough emails. That is something I need to work on.
Pop-up. That's what you need.
More pop-ups.
Well, see, that's what happens when you have Dustin do your site. You don't get pop-ups too, I guess.
Pop up all the things.
So, but also outside of that, if you do want to, take us with you on your daily commute, we are available on iTunes and Stitcher. So feel free to go ahead and subscribe there as well. Dustin, thank you for taking the time. Nick, thanks for coming on. We're gonna get out of here. Take it easy, everyone.